Our pro tip for the day is how to lose weight safely and effectively. And I would say that I have helped lots and lots of athletes over the years do this. And obviously, if you're an athlete, you're not looking to lose lean mass, you're looking to lose fat. And so we're looking to improve your body composition. Sometimes you need to add more muscle and lose fat, but we're going to focus today on creating a calorie deficit and retaining as much lean mass as possible while also losing fat. So the main point is we need to change the types of food oftentimes that you're eating. But before we even talk about that, we need to talk about how many calories and how does it apply to me? Will it differ from person to person? And obviously that's true. How many calories you need is going to be different than what your buddy needs. If you both need to lose weight, and one guy is 250 and the other guy's 350, you're going to be eating different portions of things, but you're probably going to be eating about the same types of foods. So what are the best foods to eat and what are the worst foods to eat? And I'm going to start with what are the worst foods to eat. And one of the worst foods to eat are low-fat, high-starch, high-sugar foods, because what will those foods do? Those will ensure that you stay hungry all the time. So we're going to talk about eliminating those, having the right amount of protein, which we get from our organics and grass-fed meats and pasture-raised animals, fish, poultry, eggs, and such, and also getting the right amount of fat, because you need to eat fat to burn fat, and many people don't realize that. So we use a lot of coconut oil because that's particularly good for leaning out. It contains a high amount of medium-chain triglyceride, MCT, you may have seen that, oil, and those particular oils are not easily stored, and they're also burned readily for energy. So I'm going to make sure you have enough of those fats on board so you're not hungry and you're burning fat. You're going to control the amount of carbohydrate that's contained in your diet, because too much carbohydrate, especially the processed carbohydrate, but any total carbohydrate, will cause your insulin levels to be up. And why is that a bad thing? Insulin levels are up, fat is trapped inside your cells. So that 350-pound lineman looks like he has lots of energy on board from which to tap in for his fuel source during sport. But if he has a high insulin level, it's basically trapped in there. So we need to increase glucagon, the other side of the insulin, and we do that again with the protein and the fat and a controlled amount of carbohydrate. So what would your plate look like in this particular case? What would a breakfast and maybe a lunch/dinner look like? Well, I will have an extreme, a pro plan extreme, and I have a pro plan. I'm going to start with the pro plan. The pro plan would entail a reasonable amount of starchy vegetables, for example. So that would be maybe peas or corn. That might be just a quarter of your plate, all right? And that can have some butter on it, some coconut oil and some butter on it. Then we'd also have lots of non-starchy vegetables, so your asparagus, anything that's not peas, corn, potato, that type of thing. Load up your plate with that. So maybe, a third of your plate could be that. So let's see, we have a quarter and a third. Let me add that out. The rest would be protein. And the protein sources I mentioned would be organic and clean and sustainable as much as possible, the pastured meats. That is what you need. You need that protein, that fat, and that controlled amount of carbohydrate. Then what happens as far as your training? Obviously, your training program is very important, and we'll calculate your calories based on your sport, your height, your weight, your age, your training, and such. But then after you work out, what do you need to do? Well, you need to have a recovery drink if you're trying to lean out that contains mostly protein, and oftentimes we'll add some glutamine into that drink and possibly even some glycine to help with liver detoxification, which is also sometimes a stumbling block for weight loss. So the reason we want to have protein without extra carbohydrate after you work out when you're leaning out is because we want to continue that use of that breakdown mode where we're using fat as a fuel. And so we don't want that glycemic index to go up. We'll talk about that at another time. If you wanted to gain weight. So if you wanted to lose weight afterwards, you want to have a good amount of protein. It might be between 50 and 80 grams of a good whey protein isolate, along with some glutamine, and very little or no carbohydrate. And as one strength coach that I've worked with over the year, Charles Poliquin, said, is, Julie, these athletes who have carrying a lot of body fat, they need to earn their right to eat that carbohydrate. They need to get that insulin sensitivity taken care of. and eat the right foods, do the right recovery, and eventually they will lean out. So we know that you're having trouble with carbohydrate metabolism if you're carrying weight around the middle, but we can also do some testing to look at what actually is going on at the cellular level. So in my practice, we use hair testing, which looks at different mineral relationships to look at how well you're handling the sugar, what are your energy stores, how well you're digesting. You also can do some saliva testing that looks at your energy stores and your hormonal status. But many people, I find, really need some help with getting their sweet and their carb cravings under control. And eating frequently, every 2 to 3 hours, is really important for that, in terms of trying to get those sweet and carb cravings under control, and making sure you're having that a little bit of fruit, if you're having a small amount, along with some protein and fat, will help keep your insulin levels steady. But also sometimes I'll use an herb called gymnema, and that really helps to get those sweet and carb cravings under control so that you are able to follow the correct diet in order to lean out. So that's my pro tip for today: how to lean out and how to lose weight both safely and effectively.